So we're going to get started with our conversation here and welcome the new superintendent for the Roseland School District, and that is Dr. Hector Rico. Dr. Rico, welcome to the show, Líderes del Futuro. Welcome to Sonoma County. We wanted to have today just a brief introduction about who is Hector Rico, what attracted you to Roseland, and perhaps if you could share with us some of the ideals that you have for the community of Roseland, for the school district of Roseland, to make sure that all students will succeed in that district. So welcome again to the show.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vasquez. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and with the community of Roseland to just introduce myself, but also to share a little bit about our district. And so I'll start with that. I'll start with the district. For those of you who may not be familiar with Roseland, it's a unique educational setting because it really consists of two different agencies. The first one is the traditional district that people think about. And that component of it consists of three elementary schools: Shepherd, Roseland Elementary, and Roseland Creek. But it also consists of an independent charter program, which we oversee. So therefore, we see it as part of just one big district. So I oversee, as the superintendent, both programs, the district and the charter. And the charter component of what we do is three schools as well. One middle school, which people refer to as RAMS, or Roseland Accelerated Middle School, which is 7th and 8th grade. One 7th through 12th grade school, which is Roseland Collegiate Prep, which is the one that's not in Roseland. That is out there in the Ursuline area near going towards, off the freeway, going towards where the Kaiser is, around that area somewhere. It's where the Catholic high school there is, and that's where the girls' school used to be before they moved over and became co-ed, next door. And so that's where our students for Roseland Creek, Roseland Collegiate Prep are attending school. And then the other high school is Roseland University Prep. And so together, that's Roseland Public Schools. So you'll hear the names used interchangeably: Roseland District, Roseland Charter, Roseland Public Schools. But hopefully that explains a little bit in terms of what our district is about. And we have about just under 3,000 students, pre-K through to 12th grade. But let me tell you a little bit about just my personal background to start with. I was born in Nicolas Bravo, Chihuahua, which is across the border from El Paso, Texas, about 4 miles inland. And I lived there until maybe 3 to 4 years old. And I'm not exactly sure when my mom separated from my dad and then brought me first to Tijuana for about a year. And then we moved over to East Los Angeles in the Aliso Village housing projects. And that's where I attended school, back and forth between Catholic and public, depending on how much money I think my mom had to be able to afford the tuition for the Catholic school, probably with some financial assistance, I'm assuming. But nonetheless, I went kinder and first grade to Utah Street School, 2nd grade, Dolores Mission, 3rd grade, back to the public, 4th grade, back to the Catholic, and then 5th grade, we moved out to Bell Gardens, where then I continued my middle school years. I went to high school at Salesian High School, which is a Catholic all-boys school in East LA. So I went back to East LA for high school. And then I went off to college to UC Santa Barbara, home of the Gauchos. And so I'm the first in my family, not just to attend college, but the first in my family to graduate from high school. My mom was a 6th grade. She went to 6th grade through 6th grade in Mexico. And my stepdad, who came into our lives in my middle school years, he went to school in Mexico only to 3rd grade. And so he started off in the United States under the Bracero program, working as a farm worker. My mom cleaning first homes, and then working for the county of Los Angeles, cleaning the county buildings. And she would do that. She would leave to work once my younger brother and I came home from school, and that's when she would leave. So she would remind me to make sure your brother's still alive when I get home, that he's eaten and that he's done his homework. So from an early age, I got that sense of responsibility, but I like to joke also that sense of guilt that was a like a three-way kind of sense of guilt. One, because of that experience of being the oldest, as I mentioned, but also I like to joke that it's also that Catholic guilt that I have, and then also the guilt that came when in college, as my senior, between my junior and senior years, I started to work for the California Mini Corps program, which is a tutoring program for migrant students. And they really instilled in us the sense that we're role models, and so therefore we have to make sure we act and behave a certain way because the students are watching us and they're going to grow up to emulate us. And so it's that trifecta, if you will, of sense of responsibility and guilt that sort of that I carry with me to this day, and in terms of how I conduct myself and how I do the work. I have a high sense of integrity, I think, partly because of that. What was instilled by my mom and my upbringing and so forth. And I'm here to do right by the community and no other purpose. I went off to UC Santa Barbara after high school as a nuclear engineering student. But like many first generation college students, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I really didn't know what that was. That was something that I applied to because I wanted to apply to one of the hardest majors possible. In case that didn't work out, I can always, in my mind, go down to find something else. And sure enough, I started struggling my very first quarter there. But anyhow, my third year or so, I eventually left engineering and went over and became a Latin American studies major. And that's what I graduated with. And then somebody gave me the idea. It was actually in a class where I took a history of bilingual education course with Dr. Guadalupe. He, in that class, showed us videos and stories that resembled my life. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize that the history of our Latinx community was that shortchanged, if you will, right, in the educational system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started thinking, wow, I think I can do that for a living. So I started off as a bilingual teacher in Isla Vista, or IV, which is a little community there near Santa Barbara, as a third and fourth grade bilingual teacher. Then went on to Los Angeles when we moved because we couldn't afford anything in Santa Barbara. So I continued as a bilingual teacher. Then my first experience as an administrator was at the high school level as a equivalent. It wasn't called vice principal, but equivalent to a high school vice principal at Santa Fe High School in the Whittier Union High School District. And then from there, I went to the State Department of Education, the California Department of Education, at that point, I was reviewing programs for English learners up and down the state. And that was a fascinating experience because I got to see great programs for our students, as well as some horrible programs for our students, right? And so I learned what's out there and what could be and what shouldn't be. And one of the first experiences I had was presenting with a colleague of mine to a very conservative audience of middle-aged, mostly white administrators in Orange County. It was obvious that they weren't agreeing what we were saying that they had to do. And they gave us some pretty bad feedback. And I went home thinking, my goodness, what did I get myself into? Thinking that I was in the wrong, I made a wrong career choice there. I was only 30 years old when I started there. But then I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to use this to motivate me to actually remind them that I am one of those kids who they may not want to serve the way they're supposed to, who happens to have grown up. And now I'm telling you, you shall do it. Otherwise, there will be sanctions, for your district and so forth. So that was a motivation for me to look at my work, among other experiences, through the lens of equity. So I really look at the work that I do through both the lens of equality for certain things, but really it's about equity. That not everyone requires the same thing, and some require more. And so it's our job to find out what that is and to give them what they need. But I'll speak to that a little bit more. So I received my master's also down in Southern California at the Azusa Pacific University in school administration. And then I went and became an elementary school principal in the Pittsburgh area, very diverse community, African-American, Latino, white, and Filipino were the main groups that we served there. Worked at as a district level coordinator and director, overseeing categorical programs for English learners, homeless, Title I, foster youth, and others in a few different places. And then I received my doctorate in leadership for educational equity from UC Berkeley in 2015 is when I finished that program, which was a wonderful experience interacting with some extremely brilliant people where I completely felt overwhelmed and not fully equipped to compete at that level with these brilliant students, which I use and I share that because it's a wonderful reminder to our students that no matter how difficult things may be and no matter how out of your element you might be, it's just, work hard, ask for help, stay the course, believe in yourself, and little by little it'll happen. And sure enough, I was able to graduate. As a matter of fact, I was the first one in my cohort to graduate and receive my doctorate in that program from my cohort, that is, right? And so I was very proud of that. Not because I was perhaps the smartest there, but because, I just kept on doing and just doing it until it was done. I've been a superintendent previously. Between 2016 and 19, I served as a pre-K to sixth grade school district superintendent in Salinas, in the Elisol Union School District, which is about 9,000 students. A little bit less now. I think they've had declining enrollment. But the population there was almost identical to Roseland, except for the size. Almost identical in the sense that it's about 92% Latinx, 85% free and reduced lunch, 75% English learner there. Here in Roseland, it's about 50% district-wide English learner. But when you consider that Alisal didn't have a high school setting, then it's pretty comparable because in Roseland, it's 50% at the elementary level. No, I'm sorry, 75% at the elementary level of English learners, but district-wide, it's 50%. So huge numbers. And the reason I mention that it's important is because that's the population we're serving. So therefore, that's what dictates what services you should be providing them and at high levels. And so, which then kind of takes me to what are some of my goals, if you will. And they're related to that. Some of my goals are to meet the needs of this population and all of our students, right, that we serve in the district. And different district students are different. We're not a monolithic group, whether it's Latino or Roseland in general. All the kids, they have different needs. And so that's why it's so important to understand what those needs are. So I look at it like we're meeting the needs of the whole child, the whole student, meaning it's not just the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, as they say. It's not just the academics. Of course, first and foremost, that's what we're here for, academics. But in order for students to achieve at super high levels, some kids require more than others. And so I ask you, those that are listening, think of the highest achieving school or school district that you've heard of. Think of the highest or the most affluent community that might come to mind immediately. So whatever comes to mind, that is who we're competing against. And that's who we should prepare our kids to compete at. So our kids should achieve at that level or higher. That's just the bottom line. I truly believe that, and I truly believe that they can and that they will. But the difference between those communities and our community is that those communities have a lot more resources in the community, but also in the families. And so those resources go a long way in helping the students be that much more prepared when they start school and then throughout their schooling. So therefore, we have to become surrogate, middle-income families for our students, if you will, by making sure that we provide those wraparound services, those social-emotional support services, those extracurricular services, arts and music and sports and counseling, and you name it. Experiences with museums and exposure to higher education and career options, and just different ways of thinking and talking that aren't part of our culture, that weren't part of my family's culture. And by culture, I mean twofold, not just Latinx culture, but also high poverty culture, right? And so that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that we provide our students what they need in order to then succeed at high levels, because our kids will achieve in spite of us. But how high will they achieve? Well, then that depends on how much we can support them and what we can provide them. And that's why me, working with a bunch of people, it's not just me. I may be the superintendent, but I don't have a magic wand, and I'm not like a CEO at a private company that says, do this and it gets done. Rather, I have to work I have to, and I prefer to operate in conjunction with a lot of other brilliant people, whether they're teachers or whether they're classified staff, whether it's other administrators with the Board of Education, our teacher and classified union, and equally important, our external partners from the community, including parents and businesses and politicians and so forth. All of us, just like the African proverb says that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, so too, it takes a village to educate well a child. We can't do it alone. And so therefore, I ask for your assistance. I ask for your help. Not only that I am successful, but therefore that our district is successful. And more importantly, that our students are successful, because our students will be the leaders of our community. They will be the leaders of the county, of the state, of the country. And by all accounts, by all the goodness that I've seen already in Roseland, and where I think we will continue to build on the good work that's been here and to look for areas for continued growth, they will be the leaders of our world. And I really believe that, right? For a world-class education is what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm trying to we're trying to educate the whole child and provide them with a world-class education. Succinctly put, that's what we're trying to accomplish. So with that comes not just, like I said, the academic, but the social emotional supports that we have to do that. And that means bringing in, whether it's counselors and it's working with the staff, with the board, to bring in those resources, to allocate the resources accordingly, that we provide them with the arts and all the extracurricular activities that I've mentioned. So, the reason I came to Alisal wasn't because I was necessarily looking to come to Roseland. I wasn't necessarily looking to come to Roseland because honestly, I'd never even heard of Roseland. I knew Santa Rosa, right? But when the superintendent search firm contacted me, because they knew my work in Alisal, in Salinas, they thought it would be a good match. Because not just because of the population, but because some of the things that I was able to do over there, such as like bringing in counselors, we developed an in-house mariachi group, which is beautiful. We developed a dual immersion program. We built 2 additional family resource centers. We expanded our offering of dance and music and STEM education and things like that. So those kinds of things are some of the examples of what I'm going to be working with others to investigate, where the feasibility of doing some of those things here, depending on what the needs are and depending on what the priorities might be, to really provide the kind of support that our students need to achieve as holistically. And what I can share briefly is that in terms of the issues of equity, I've lived my life, my professional life anyhow, through the lens of equity, as I've mentioned. And so everything we do has got to be through that lens of equity, because it's not just about equity, about cultures, about Latinx, it's about everything, making sure students get what they need, period. Simple as that, regardless of who the students are. So because of that, then we're going to then do things, and we've already started with some. Let me just give you a few examples, and hopefully next time, if I'm invited to come back, I definitely will share some surprises. Hopefully by then that we'll be able to speak more about some additional accomplishments. But for now, what I can share is that we've done already working together with some amazing staff, which I really feel blessed to be working and calling them colleagues. Is we hired a new RUP principal, whose name is Connie Lopez Marks, who comes from us from Hillsburg as a vice principal over there, and also before that from Tamales, also as high school vice principal. She's bilingual, bicultural, and I'm looking forward to working closely with her to continue to grow on all the great things that RUP has done, but to continue to move forward and even beyond everyone's wildest expectations. We just hired a bilingual, bicultural director of secondary curriculum. And so looking forward to continue to look at the pedagogy there and the curriculum and see how we can advance, and continue to achieve at high levels there. We just hired a permanent CBO, which we're excited about, who's going to really help us then look at the resources that we have and make sure that we look at them through the lens of equity to make sure we are able to find the funds, and working with our external partners to hopefully bring in some additional funds. So if you're listening and you are a donor or somebody who might want to help us out with that regard, by all means, we welcome all the support possible. And so those are some of the examples already. Another one in terms of curriculum I can share with you is that at a recent board meeting, our wonderful English department representatives presented and the board approved some new novels that will be part of the different grade levels curricula, where now these more diverse novels by authors of Latinx, African-American, Asian, and others will now be part of the curriculum. So our students will also be learning a more diverse curriculum now. And so those are just some immediate steps that have taken place. I can't take credit, for all of that. Like I said, some great people working here already. And so we're working to build and bring some synergy to collaborate, continue to work on seeing where else we can push the envelope to really provide our kids with a world-class education. So with that, I know I'm right around my 20 minutes. So I will pause there and see where, Rafael, you want to take it next, and I'd be happy to add to that or to wrap it up, however you'd like to proceed. And I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Definitely. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I know that you are going around in the community, getting to know the community members from some of these individuals who call themselves leaders, people who have identified some community members who work in government, private businesses, and you are meeting, regular family members, community members, parents, students all over Roseland. And I believe that's the right approach. You really need to get to know the community before you start making or attempting to make too much policy, because we need to ask, what is it that they need? And I think you have the right idea. And I want to clarify the difference between equity, right? Because a lot of people, equality and equity, they seem to misunderstand. And it's really beautiful that you understand that. I also think that you have a better chance of implementing some changes, specifically with the lens or through the lens of equity, than larger districts where we're talking about you have close to 3,000 students. And the Santa Rosa School District, just one school, Santa Rosa High School, has over 2,000 students. So it makes it a little bit more challenging than your situation, perhaps. I personally am looking forward to what is going to happen over the next few months, especially you as a former English language learner. What are you going to do to minimize the number of students who are long-term English language learners? We have very interesting numbers. I have spoken about that here. I will not ask you about that now because, again, I want you to start fresh. I want more than anything to just welcome you to the community. I wanted the community to hear your voice, get to know you, and then we want you to come back as many times as you would like to come back. And we talked about this previously for transparency's sake. We talk about you coming back and updating us on projects that you're working on. And at the same time, letting us know what events and how the community in general can participate with you. So with that, I want to thank you. We are about to run out of time. And again, I look forward to our next conversation or next update, events, welcome back to school, whatever events you have going on, where you can invite the community post-COVID to be able to visit the multiple facilities that you have over there in Roseland. So with that, welcome to KBBF, welcome to the County of Sonoma, and welcome to the show, Líderes del Futuro. Welcome, Dr. Hector Rico. And again, thank you for taking the time and being with us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. And thanks everyone for listening in. And I invite you to be partners in the education of our students and for the well-being of not just our students, but for the future leaders of our community and beyond. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.